So let's start off by having everybody introduce themselves.
My name is Craig Culver, co-founder, and currently I'm still the CEO. They haven't kicked me out of it yet, of Culver's Frozen Custard Restaurants, or Culver Franchising.
I'm Sally Wilkie. I worked for the Center for Career Development for several years, and then I was the executive director of Head Start. And now I'm a pastor in the beautiful Northwoods. It's South Range, Michigan.
I'm Shahida Govani. I graduated in '06 from Oshkosh, resident of Oshkosh, decided to stay in the area and do undergrad here, and very proud that I did. Then went on to dental school at Marquette, and now I own a small dental practice here in Oshkosh. Happy to be back and serving our community.
My name is Marlo Ambis. I'm owner of Agoma Club and Manila Resto here in town. Graduated in 2007 as a music major and business minor as well.
All right, I'm Nathan Stepanek. I'm currently a student at UW Oshkosh, so I'm a senior. I'll be graduating in August, so this is my last semester right now.
Well, I'm Rick Wells, and I'm the chancellor of UW Oshkosh.
I'm Tracy Slater. I'm an assistant professor of political science here. So I teach courses on mostly European politics and international law, those types of things. I came here in 2006. So maybe a good starting point for us is to define what success means for each of you. It might be very different things.
So, like for example, with me, when I do videos for the admissions office, obviously my goal is to inspire people to come to UW Oshkosh. But even if I can just get them to think about the college process in the right way, like how they should be touring schools, what questions they should be asking, for me, that's still success.
You know, there's success in business, and then there's success in life as well. And many times, I believe they're just like that. And of course, in business, when you have success, to some people that may mean making a lot of money or making money, period. But that isn't always what it is. I think if you can find enjoyment and happiness in what you do, whether it's in your work life or personal life or both, then you've found success.
Getting back up, you know, recovering, learning what you can learn from what didn't go well, and then getting back up and going for it again.
Because we will fail.
Yes.
We will make mistakes.
I have a friend for whom that is his definition of success is being certain to have plenty of failures so that he would learn things and ultimately be successful.
I don't wish for a lot of failures.
Well, there's a lot to learn. I mean, I don't like how it feels. I don't like how it feels to fail, but I love all of the things that come out of it.
Shahida, what do you think?
It's my biggest idea when I try to define success personally would be anything that you could do that you could look yourself in the mirror and say that you did that with integrity. You know, I love being a dentist and working with my hands, and I get a lot of gratification from my patients when I get them out of pain, or I fix something, or when I make a crown that looks beautiful. But you know, if I worked at Taco Bell or was a garbage truck driver, to me it doesn't really matter what you do if you do it with integrity and you go to work or to your home, wherever you are, and you give your whole heart and you try to give 120%.
We thought that, you know, by being able to share our culture, food, our taste of music, you know, our way of life and everything is something that we wanted to do. I mean, we could have chosen, you know, go to Appleton or Green Bay, maybe some other day, but right now we wanted our home base.
I'll help you franchise that.
Yeah? Right. We'll talk.
You know, just hearing you guys and seeing what you're doing and so on, it makes us feel good. I mean, we always feel that we have a little role in some of this, but I think for a lot of people that do what we do, watching other people, our alums and students, successfully accomplish things, and I think that's why commencement is such a phenomenal experience for us. It's a very ritualistic, but it's very rewarding and keeps you charged up year after year after year, no matter how challenging or tough things are. So
let's talk about the role that the university has played in each of your career paths, as different as they are.
So I feel like Oshkosh was huge for my development. I come from a family that no one on either side had went to college, like cousins or aunts or uncles. No one really graduated. And my father came here from Uganda as a refugee in the 70s. So there's very little like education component like growing up. My mom was really supportive. But I decided to go to Oshkosh so I could work and save money and see how college went. I was a little bit nervous, and I feel like it was a great place. I traveled to Boston one semester with my mentor, Dr. Holton, at the time, and got to present research at a national meeting. Things that as an undergrad, who had never even been on an airplane, really cool experiences, kind of like the energy that you possess. I felt that same way, like lots of great energy, and that I was able to have experiences that I wouldn't have been able to have at other universities.
I've got a degree in biology, and
It served you well.
Oshkosh was good to me. I was just proud to get a degree, honestly. I just thought that was a pretty cool thing. And I was proud of myself for accomplishing that. It took me 5 years, however, it did. But, my family's been in the restaurant business since I was a small child. And, I just ended up gravitating there, even though I didn't want to go there. I ended up going there. But getting away from home, developing skills, people skills that maybe I didn't have before. I did become a better student as I aged as a student. I matured.
I think for me, like my experiences at UW Oshkosh would be big things, relationships that I've developed. Not with just the students, but also faculty and the chancellor. It's been great just to be able to be involved in so many different things. Like I said earlier, my major was music, and I was involved in a lot of different performance groups there. The chamber orchestra, the symphony orchestra there, and I was even a part of the steel drum program, the very first that was established there at the university. So I too, when people say, where did you graduate, or I have a lot of friends and family that are from out of town, I go, oh, so you go to Madison? I'm like, no, I go to Oshkosh. So.
This is my first job out of graduate school. This is, where I had a lot of interviews after graduate school, and I was headed out to private schools and places like that. And this is the only place I stepped on campus, and I met my now department, and I was like, this is it. I feel really comfortable here. It reminded me of my college experience. I met the students. They reminded me of me. And so that was, it was no decision at all when the then dean called me and offered me the job. It was all I could do to be like, yes, I'll think about it and I'll get that. Because I already knew that I was going to do it. I already knew.
There are people in our community, whether they're faculty or administrators or students, for the most part respect each other and want to learn from each other. So faculty learn from the students. So it's not just the students, the faculty teaching the students, you learn a lot from students, having never left higher education myself. I'm first generation college grad too, but I just never left. I stayed here all the way through.
So think of, do you have a moment that springs to mind where you just felt that sort of content, like, this is it, this is what I was meant to do, or that moment where you knew, this is what I'm supposed to be doing?
Recently we decided to do, we do music videos every now and again as promotion. And ever since I started working there, I'd always say, hey, I can write music. Maybe someday we'll do an original song. You're like, oh yeah, okay, we'll do that someday. So we finally did it this last semester. So I finally got to be able to work with fantastic student artists and just be able to write the song and be able to put it all together. And it hit me when we were doing a big group filming shoot, and we had a bunch of people in Colf, and I was just had people helping out, and I was running the camera, and I just stopped for a second, this is exactly what I want to do.
Marlon, what do you think?
Well, I think for me, it's when we had our official grand opening, it was September 8th of last year, overcoming all those obstacles that were along the way, this 20-something going to these banks, being like, hey, I want to, open up this restaurant here.
Here's the money.
Yeah. But I kept those letters from the banks that said
That said
sorry.
no?
Yep.
Yeah. You're not doing business with them either, are you?
No.
I remember.
Yeah. I think another thing that's great about or any line of work is just hearing people telling you thank you for doing something like this in the community, and thank you for sharing your culture with everybody, and it gives you that you know, gratification.
That's what makes it special, doesn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Sure
Yep.
does.
And kind of like you said, when banks tell you no, or people say, oh, you're going to do that from the ground up, you know, yeah, right. And then when it works out, that it works out okay and it's going great, that's a really good, warm feeling. But my favorite thing is like when patients bring me things. Like I had a lady who brought me a cheesecake. Like as a dentist, I didn't like my dentist that much. I mean, I liked him, but not like I'd make him a cheesecake. So when people like bring us cheesecake, or a woman brought like a handmade crocheted washcloth, people do really generous things, and that generous, like heartfelt, like appreciation is just so amazing. That means more to me than any amount of money. That's the coolest part. I love when patients share stories that maybe they shouldn't. I had a little boy, I always ask him what's new, how's your week at school? And I leaned back and he's like 5. I'm like, so what's new? And he's like, well, don't tell Dad, but Mom's pregnant. She found out today. So like, that's my favorite part about my life. Like, I love that they share. They tell you all these amazing stories.
When I was 7 years old and my cousins and siblings would be at Grandma's house, we'd be out on the front porch and I'd line them all up and put on my dad's sport coat and his hat, and I'd be the preacher, because of course there weren't women pastors in those days. And so in order to be a pastor, I had to be a man. And so I played church with my siblings. And I will, you know, tell you that I was very bossy. I can't do that today with my real parishioners. I don't get away with that at all. But ultimately, for me, it was after the red stole was put on me, and I stood, and the bishop said, "I now declare that Sally Wilkie is an ordained minister of the Church of Christ." It just,
Proud moment.
it just doesn't get any better than that.
We just did a a ribbon cutting in Lee's Summit, Missouri. It's a St. Louis suburb, and you know, I went down. I usually go to these, and I get my opportunity to speak, and came back, and the mother of the general manager sent us a letter back, and she was, you know, just touched in such a way, not necessarily about me, but about the whole team, and how proud she was that her son, the general manager, was part of the Culver's organization. You know, that just, those are successful moments, I believe. And but as I said before, it doesn't stop there. You know, you got to continue to work at it, work at it, work at it.
And what is the best piece of advice that anybody has ever given you to help you sort of go through your life? And I'll say something that my mom continues to say, and it still resonates with me every day, and it sounds a little ridiculous, but she says, you know, Tracy, you gotta be a friend to make a friend. That's core to who I am. You gotta be a friend to make a friend.
My dad always said, Craig, you got to spend $1 to make $1. Until I was spending too much, and then he says, what are you doing? He said to me one day, and I don't even know what we were talking about, but he said to me, Craig, you never cheapen a product.
Do want to be like my mom. Whenever I was nervous about doing college or taking out loans and doing these things, she'd always say, well, you have nothing to lose, and you'll always wonder what if. Yeah. And that's very true. I don't have a lot of what ifs, because I just do it, and if I fail, whatever, I'm going to try it, and I won't have to wonder the what if.
Because my dad said this to me when I was real little, so I'm going to be paraphrasing. This is exactly what he said, because I'm sure it was a longer conversation. But to make sure you listen and observe before you make a decision or a statement.
I'd say my parents would always tell me if I'm going to start something that I should finish it and do it well. I mean, there's going to be things in life that you don't always want to do, but you have to do it.
This is a really diverse group.
It's great.
This is just you know, this could be my moment. You know?
I know a song.
Yeah.
This is the moment.
You know, when you said about it all being about community, it's all about a lot of things, but there's so many similarities that go on here. So I just thank you. I've just really learned some interesting things today. I did get some advice early in my seminary career. Pastors cannot afford throwaway lines. And I got a million of them. You know, I will go for the laugh or the witty comeback or the whatever. And people, we need to take time to hear one another and understand one another. And sometimes those quick responses that just roll off my tongue don't indicate that at all. But the best advice ever really didn't come in the form of advice. It came as a kind of a comment from my mom, and it was, "Want to borrow a jack?" There was an article in Reader's Digest a million years ago about a guy whose tire went flat, and I'll do this really fast. His tire went flat, and he got out of the car, and he's like, "Oh, great, now I have a flat tire, and I don't have a jack, and what am I going to do? I suppose I could go up to that house, and they're probably asleep already, and I'll wake them up, and they'll be all crabby, and they'll come down, and they'll yell at me, and slam the door in my face, and whatever." And he's thinking all this as he's walking over there, you know. And the guy opens up the door. He does knock, and it takes a while, and the guy opens up the door. And before saying anything else, the man who with the flat tire just says, "Keep your damn jack." And turns away.
He talks himself into it.
Exactly. So my mama taught me, every time I would sort of, grumble about something that was going to happen, she would say, "Want to borrow a jack?" and that truly leaves me with just a very positive, not necessarily rose-colored glasses, but a very optimistic, positive, anything. Did I say damn? I did.
That's okay. But I remember going off to college, with pretty much not knowing anything about college. There's no real college going tradition in my family, except my father did go for 2 years, and he played for Pop Warner at Temple, and then he went off to the service and so on, never finished. So I didn't have a very good sense of what it was about, and I was recruited that way as an athlete. And the first year was really, really hard, and I almost didn't make it, that kind of thing. And I remember going home and talking to my mother and saying how hard it was, and she said, "Son, the first year is always the toughest. The first year is the toughest." So, it made me feel better. And I was home for the summer, and I got recharged and went back. The second year was still hard. I went home and said the same thing, and she said, "Remember I told you the first couple years were the toughest." So finally, the third year, it was, I was getting a little better, but it was pretty tough, and I couldn't wait, because I knew I was going to, always comes a little ritual, how did the year go, type of thing. And she said, "Well, the first 3 years are the toughest." And I said, "Mom, you keep telling me the same thing all the years." She said, "Then you're ready for my final advice." I said, "What's that?" "It all works out in the end." There's some truth to that. You worry so much about making it when you're taking on big challenges and stuff, and you can worry yourself to death, but you can sit back, it'll work out. It'll work out, that kind of thing.
What would you do the same?
But again, I didn't want to stay in the restaurant business. And my dad sat me down again. He sat me down a lot, apparently.
Still sitting with Dad.
And the discussion was he was having health issues, and he said, "Son, would you take over and be the general manager of the farm kitchen?" And I told him, "No. I don't want to do that, Dad. I don't want to be you and Mom." And things have turned out okay. I'm glad I said no at that time. But, eventually I did stay in the restaurant business. I did, and eventually in 1984, of course, we started Culver's.
Well, I spent a little bit more time than I should have, at college, but I wouldn't change it for a thing, because the major that I was in actually led me to meeting my wife, so.
You got that on tape.
Yeah.
But I got accepted at Madison, and it just didn't feel right. Like, I really liked Oshkosh. I had grown to really enjoy being there. Things were great. And then I met my husband while I was doing undergrad. We worked out at the same gym, and we ended up being each other's, perfect fit. It was a perfect part of the puzzle. And I wouldn't have had that experience if I had went to Madison either.
There's one moment I can pinpoint being a cause of a lot of my happiness today. And that is in high school, when I got sick of waiting for my brother to teach me guitar, and I just decided to do it myself. So, because he would always tell me, he's like, yeah, I'll teach you this year. And I'm like, okay, cool. And then one day I'm like, you know what, I'm just going to go upstairs, I'm going to start playing. And the fact that I learned guitar which is still something that I love doing today. So that's the first thing. It brought music into my life, which I love. But I learned the instrument, and then my junior year I started a band, which some of my closest friends that I still have today. And then with those friends, we decided to start making videos together, and then I discovered my love for video, and then I decided to major in radio, TV, film, and then also with my band, that is also how I met the person that I just married. So, if you trace it all back, that one moment I would definitely make sure I did again, because it's like who I am now.
Send your brother a thank you card.
Thank you for that.
The best decision I ever made was to ask my wife to marry me, and the best decision she made was to say yes. No, but we met when I was 4 and she was 3 in a sandbox in the mountains of upstate New York, and it's a long story. We went our separate ways and so on, and got married in our late 20s. And that was a great decision, and that, you know, if you make a decision to have a lifelong partner, I think I always tell our students, you know, making good decisions, you know, what you were saying before, is so important. If the one thing I hope UW Oshkosh does as well or better than any other institutions is help us make good decisions, help our students make good decisions. It's so important. And there's some decisions that are really fundamental that a lot of stuff springs from, you know. And you know, when I'm trying to recruit students to Oshkosh, I talk to the parents and say, if I could prove to you that if you come to Oshkosh, your son or daughter is 4 or 5 times more likely to make a good decision about a lifelong partner, would you come? They say, she's coming now, or he's coming now. You know. That's like parents, because you really want your children, if you have children, right? You really want your children to be successful and be happy. And that's what a successful child is, a happy child, right? To me, that was a really good decision, and I'm still learning. I learn a lot from my wife, trust me, she teaches me a lot. And then I guess the other thing, Tracy, and I look at you because I'm assuming you would say that maybe one of your answers would be deciding to be a college professor. Yeah. That was such a good decision for me. It's been so rewarding and so fulfilling. I mean, even though I taught as a professor for about 18 years and several thousand students, it's different kind of institutions. You always are a professor. When you learn from your teaching, when you teach, you learn material better, not just because you're imparting the knowledge, but you're learning from your students as they're receiving it and they're questioning you, or they give you an insight. You know, I never realized that's really what that meant. I think that's been the best decision I made, outside of getting my wife to marry me.
Well, thank you so much, everyone. This was so great and so easy.